Hey everybody, my name's Ryan, and here at eTrailer we install, test fit, and review a lot of different parts. That way we can try to answer any questions those of you might have. And that's exactly what we're doing today on our 2011 Ford Edge. We're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Class II Trailer Hitch receiver. So there is a lot of different hitches available for the Edge, and which one is going to work best for you really just depends on what you plan on doing with it. So in our case, since this one does have the smaller 1¼ by 1¼ opening, I think this one's going to have the best appearance because it's smaller in size, so it kind of blends in a little bit better. And this would be a great choice if you primarily just plan on using your hitch for accessories. With that being said, if you're looking to do a little bit more, maybe some towing, I would recommend a Class III hitch like the etrailer.com one. It's one of my favorites and looks really good as well. With that being said though, this hitch should work out great, especially for those accessories like folding bike racks and so on. And that's partly due because we have some pretty good clearance here. So the end of the receiver tube opening is going to be kind of just behind our bumper, and that should give us enough space to be able to fold those accessories up into that stored position without having to worry about it hitting the back of our Edge. So this is going to be a Class II hitch. It's going to have that 1¼ by 1¼ receiver tube opening and a reinforced collar, not only for extra strength, but I think it looks pretty good as well. It's going to have the standard 1/2-inch size pinhole. Keep in mind, a pin and clip does not come included, but if you need one, you can pick it up here at eTrailer. We're going to have plate-style safety chain openings, which I'm really not too crazy about, to be honest with you, but they are going to give us enough space to use just about any size hook that we might have. Now, as far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 350-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. So that's going to be the amount of weight that's pushing down on the hitch. So that's good for those 1 to 3 bike racks, for example. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to be 3,500 pounds. That's going to be the amount of weight that's pulling on the hitch. So it is a weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. I do always like to suggest, never a bad idea just to grab your Edge's owner's manual. That way you can make sure your SUV can pull that much weight safely. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you can use these to help figure out which hitch mounted accessories to get. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 13 inches. And from the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of our rear bumper, that's going to be about 4 inches. And you can use that measurement to help figure out that if any folding accessories you might have, be stored in that upright position without contacting the bumper. So at the end of the day, this is going to be a great way to be able to use all your hitch mounted accessories and maybe even pull around a small trailer from time to time. Now, as far as the installation goes, it is a little involved, but it's really not too bad. Everything's relatively easy to get to and shouldn't take you a whole lot of time. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put the hitch on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Edge, and we're going to need to lower our exhaust to give us some room to work. So first thing you want to do is take a strap and run it from side to side. That way we can kind of control how far and how fast we let our exhaust down. If you don't have a strap laying around the house, you can always pick one up here at eTrailer. Now, to lower the exhaust, we're going to have a total of 3 rubber isolator hangers, just like this one. So we have one here on the passenger side, one just like this on the driver's side, and one closer towards the center. But the way to get these off, you can spray them down with some soapy water or some penetrating oil. Just going to take a pry bar and work the rubber portion off of the metal hanger. And that one here in the center, if you just follow the exhaust towards the front of our vehicle, it's going to be right here. Now that we have those isolator hangers disconnected, we can loosen up our strap and lower our exhaust down a little bit. Now what we can do is loosen up our heat shield That way we can trim a small portion of it out to make room for our hitch. So on the frame rail, we're going to have two 8mm bolts. We'll go ahead and pull those out. Once you have those out, what you can do is kind of grab the heat shield and pull it down like that. So what I went ahead and did is just mark the areas that we need to trim out. You can see this little corner here, as well as this one over here. And we're trimming that out. That way it will allow us access to the attachment points in the frame rail that we're going to use. So that's why we're cutting it. That being said, I'm just going to use a pair of 10 snips and get that trimmed out. So you can see if you kind of hold it up, now our holes are cleared and we'll be able to get our hardware in place. Now let's go ahead and kind of talk about some of our attachment points. We're going to be using this hole and this one here in our frame rail. And I just want to mention too that you're not going to be reinstalling these two bolts here that was originally holding the heat shield up, and that's because our hitch will eventually sandwich it. And you also want to make sure that you do the same thing over on the other side, so get this trimmed out. And once you have that done, from this point on, anything we do to this side of our edge, we're also going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the exact same way. With that being said, the way that we're going to get our hardware in place in our two attachment points is by using what's called a fish wire. So we're going to take the coiled end of our fish wire, put it through that hole there, and you're going to want to push it towards the back of your car. And it's a little tricky to see, but right up through this opening here, you'll be able to feel the back of your frame rail. And there's actually an opening in there. Like I said, it's tough to see, but it's actually pretty easy to feel with your hands. And what we're trying to do is get that coiled end of the fish wire to drop out through there, just like that. Once we have that end dropped out, we're going to take our spacer block, put that over the coiled end, and we're going to be taking the shorter carriage bolts. You take that carriage bolt and thread it onto the fish wire. And you can grab the other end of the fish wire, and you're just going to feed that hardware up into the frame rail. So we'll work that in there. You can pull on the other end of the fish wire and get that bolt to drop down through. With that one in place, I'm going to repeat that same process to get our hardware in that attachment point there. Now with an extra set of hands, we can take our hitch and raise it into position. You want to take your pull wires and run them through the corresponding holes in the hitch. So those there. We can lift it up. Make sure nothing is kind of getting hung up in there, so make sure our bolts are all the way down like this. And what we're going to do is remove one of our pull wires. Now, you want to make sure to carefully remove at least one or two, because we will need to reuse one here in a moment. But once we have one removed, we're going to take a flange nut, and we want to get at least one started on each side, hand tight. That way the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of the hardware. So I got that one going. I'll do the same thing for this bolt right here. Now what we can do is come back with a 19mm socket and snug down our bolts. So we're going to have one more attachment point that we need to open up that's going to hold our hitch up as well. And we're going to use a hitch as a template. You can see right there, there's a hole in the hitch. So we're going to use that opening to drill out a hole there in the body of our vehicle. So I'll get my drill bit and open that up. So with that hole drilled out, we can take the coiled end of our fish wire, push it through, and again towards the back of our edge. We want that coiled end to drop out of that same opening that we used for our other bolts. This one can be a little bit trickier just because how close the attachment point is to that opening, but as long as you kind of work it back and forth, you'll be able to reach up and grab it. And once we have it down, we're going to take our spacer block. And this time we're going to use the longer carriage bolt. Thread that on. Push everything back up into the frame. Once we have it drop down, we can pull that fish wire off, take our flange nut, we'll get it started by hand, and then we can come back with our socket and snug it down. Now what we need to do is grab a torque wrench and tighten down all of our hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. Now what we can do is move back to our exhaust and rehang it. So I just sprayed them down again, some soapy water, kind of line it up by hand, and work them hangers back into position. Now that our exhaust is supporting itself, we'll go ahead and remove our strap. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the CURT Class II Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2011 Ford Edge.